is going to say, the first attachment is going to say the Vine Wesleyan Church. It is a process of assessment on how to bring your people in. And maybe some of you are doing that well, and maybe some of you aren't. This is a little sheet that will help you kind of pick up the speed on that. We did a thing by a book entitled Fusion by Circe 4 years ago. It was the very first thing that we did. And in that book, Fusion, it has a process that you can bring people in and get them acquainted to your church, and then the responsibilities of the pastor, whether that's being writing or calling on them or whatever, it's literally a process. And so this is just a reminder of that. It's kind of a different version. I want to send that out to everybody so you would have that. Then we had a lot of discussion with our Board of Ministries following the event this last month. So I'm going to send out 2 sheets about this. Number one is it's going to comparison. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's going to have a comparison of Calvinism and Wesleyanism, and we're going to be looking at, put that really up there. All right. So that's what it's going to look like. It's going to compare the tulip theory over here. Okay. The tulip theory, if you don't know what the tulip theory is, that means we're already in trouble. Okay, if you're going, what is the tulip theory? Then we're already in trouble. Okay, you need to know what the tulip theory is. If you don't know what the tulip theory is, we're in trouble. All right, so it's going to be the tulip theory to our theology. All right, now I want to tell you that this is what we call a 5-point Calvinist who believes in all 5 of these. Okay. And what you have today is you have a group of Calvinists that have jumped down to number 3 right here. And they believe in free will, but they believe in once you're in, you're always in. Okay. So let me give you an idea. If you like Charles Stanley, he's a 5-point Calvinist. Okay. If you like Andy Stanley, he's a 3-point Calvinist. If you listen to some of the 2 or 3 of the pastors down in Texas, you're either going to have a 5-point or a 3-point. I promise you, you're going to have one or the other. Okay. And you need to be able to talk about this whole idea. For instance, the first one is that you don't even have the ability to make a good decision. So you need God to come in and make the decision for you. Okay. And so I'm going to send this sheet out. That sheet should really create some good discussions. It's a tulip theory. You can look that up on the internet if you'd like. The T is total depravity. Okay, you don't have the abilities. All right, so that'll be the second sheet. Third sheet comes from, I think this came from Jake Blankenship. It came to me a long ways through. And it's 5 points on holiness that you can teach and you can understand. And actually, you could end up making a preaching series out of these 5 points really easily. Okay. So we're going to send that out to you. And I want to give credit where it's due. I think this is from Jake. I think this is something that Jake uses at his church. Okay. I have woken up a sleeping giant in 2 or 3 things that I said at retreat. I'm grateful for that. But one of them has to do with, can everybody see that? The audit. Okay. So I'm going to explain it really quick. There are 2 types of audits that are main audits, an internal and an external. All right. An external audit means that that's somebody from outside thoroughly looking at your books. So Gary Swearengin called me last night, and he getting ready for a board meeting, and he gave cost him $9,000 for an external audit. Okay. The manual calls for an internal audit. All right. An external's great, won't hurt you. You have the money, great. But the manual requires an internal audit. So internal audit means what you could do is you could take your books to another church. They could bring their books over to you, and you would look at a list of items that need to be checked. For instance, have your taxes been paid? Okay, now I know that sounds really dumb. We've got some churches that have forgot to pay their pastors' taxes, self-employment taxes, and so on, your FICA, and then they end up having a massive amount of money to pay and penalties. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm sending you this. This comes from the General Church. I talked to Mark Lale, who is well, he now is the Nazarene Foundation president. But Mark was really our CEO of finance, CFO of finances for years, a friend of mine from seminary. And so we're going to send you this sheet. This will help you. Everybody, is it going smoothly for everybody? Just a reminder, you can hook up with, you could actually, if you can't afford it, you can call the office, you can join our account. So an account allows 10 accounts plus unlimited devices on that account. So we could have 10 churches join us. I think I told you, so I'm on it. And so I have all my stuff. Learned here in the last few days is when we created that, I do not manage it. I'm not the administrator of it. So if you're thinking, well, you're going to join, but you're going to administrate it, that would be really foolish. All right. Because that means that you can shut it off and turn it back on, which that does away with your idea of being accountable. So have somebody else be your administrator. You keep your hands off of it, and let's protect ourselves, our families, and our churches. All right. Everybody good with all of that? Pretty good. All right, great. Well, I want to talk tonight about Leading on Empty. It's a book by Wayne Cadero. Some of you would recognize that name. Others of you, you don't have a clue, and that's fine. I want to kind of condense his book down, and we'll make some at the end that hopefully that will help us out. So let's just begin, jump right into it. Number one, solitude. Solitude is a chosen separation for refining your soul. Solitude is a chosen separation for refining your soul. On the other hand, isolation is what you crave when you neglect the first one. So for all of us, you know, we talk about it's good to be off by ourselves. It's good to have time by yourself to kind of energize and help yourself out. So solitude is chosen, okay, but isolation in one way is forced. And we pull back. You can identify this in your church. If somebody starts pulling back in your church, in other words, they quit coming or they quit being part of Sunday school or small groups, or they leave after church every time they're there, they're creating this separation. All right. You all know that is a huge warning for you that something's going on. All right. So we want to apply that to our own lives in the church. And as pastors, if you start pulling back, if you're not a part of stuff, you know, you're just not wanting to be there with your people or whatever. Isolation is what you crave when you neglect the first of choosing solitude. All right. And I'm going to explain a little bit more of this. So number two, sometimes when we get so busy rowing the boat, we don't take time to stop and see where we're going or what we are becoming. How many of you have ever floated? Just raise your hand to me really quick. Give me an idea. Okay, about half of us. All right, so let me explain rowing. All right, floating in the boat. Floating in the boat is getting in the water and staying in the boat. That's the name of the game right there. All right. Now, Jay Reed doesn't understand those rules. He spends more time in the water than he does in the boat. But hey, that makes it fun. Okay. So well, the very first time I ever went floating, I went with Bruce McCright, and we were young, and we thought the name of the game was finish first. Okay, so two young pups, ignorant, dumb, whatever name you want to put onto us, we would have worn that name. We rode. Oh, we were gonna win. I mean, we were the champions. We rode and we rode. We wore ourselves out. We were wiped out, going all over the river, zigzagging back and forth. And we were just lucky to finish that first time. Okay. Well, now when I go floating, I might put the oar in the water. Okay. I've learned to ride the current. Instead of fighting the current, I ride with the current. Are you hearing me? Some of you fight the current rather than riding with the current. You're all about trying to finish, and you're killing yourself going back and forth across the river. You're wiped out because you're not going with the current, the flow. You're fighting it. You're so busy rowing, you can't even have time to look up and see the trees, the embankments, the beautiful scenery that's all around you. You miss it all. All because you're busy. Number 3, every vehicle has to have a maintenance schedule. How many of you have ever been driving down the road and you saw a red light come on your panel, and it said something like change oil, need gas, blowing up the engine? Has anybody ever had a red light come on? Okay. Why do they come on? They come on because we haven't properly maintained our vehicle, right? In fact is, if you want to run a car, just don't put oil in it and see how that works for you. Don't ever change the oil. Hey, just run that thing. I'm sure it'll be just fine. And I know friends, in fact, I know 2 friends, they thought that was the way it worked, and they ruined their car because they never thought you had to put oil in the car. Okay, so if that happens to vehicles, could that happen to us? And the answer is yes, it does happen to us. We need some type of regular maintenance so that we don't burn out or have depression. Those two words are really key. They're not the same, but they're really important. Burnout, depression. And so sometimes we get burnt out because we're going too fast, we're doing too much. And sometimes we get into depression because we have not handled what we're going through. That makes sense for everybody? Okay. So if you don't know how to handle your situations, if you're doing it by yourself, you will end up in depression. If your load is too great, you will end up in burnout. And there's a vast difference that takes place there. Okay. Number 4, he does an issue here with concern and responsibility, and I love the way he does this. He said there's a difference between concern and responsibility. So the first one is, if you like to have your yard pretty and looking nice, and you don't want everybody thinking you have a junk pile in your yard, but your neighbor has a junk pile in his yard, every time you come home, it drives you nuts. Okay. You can't change that. You're not going to fix that. You can't go over to your neighbor's yard and pick up his trash unless you want to have a war. You can't do all that. Okay. The best you could do is like, God, would you please help them to clean up their yard, or blind my eyes to their yard. Okay. So the concern is neighbor's yard. My responsibility is, hey, I'll pray about it. That's about all I can do. Or maybe you've got somebody in your life that is a bad influence. You're concerned about them. Well, you can't change them. They have to want to change. So again, it may be a concern, but you can't fix the problem unless they want the problem to be fixed. Okay. Now watch this next one. So all of us I think are here is that what others say about us concerns us. I want people to talk good about me. I don't want anybody walking off, talking negative, demeaning, saying what an idiot he is. I can't believe he's doing this. I don't want that. All right. But now watch what Kadar says about this. He calls it the 5% rule. 85% of what we do, anybody can do it. 85%. 10% of what we do, most could do. 5% of what we do, only I can do. The 5% determines the 95%. That is really good in case you're wondering tonight. Okay? Too many of us are doing the 85 and the 10%. All right? When we should be doing the 5%. And we could be influencing. If you are doing the 85%, you are a micromanager. So here's what's going to happen in your life and in your church. You can write this down. This is solid as rock. Okay? If you micromanage your church, you will get up to 65 to 80, and that's all you will do. If you come into a church that's 100 and you're a micromanager, you will manage that right down to 65 to 80. You're saying, well, why are you doing that? Because 65 to 80 is the amount of relationships we can handle without burnout and depression. Okay? There is a rule called the single cell concept. It's simply this, that at the number of 65, every church has to make a change in the way it manages the relationships inside of the church. If you are a micromanager, you will never get past that number. So in every size church, if you take this rule, you multiply that out, 65, 130, are you with me? 195, 250, basically. Okay, when you study those numbers, you'll see those are major walls in church sizes, because there has to be change in the way you manage your church. If you want to stay 65, then you just do your thing. But if you want to get past 65, you have got to learn how to develop leaders and develop ministries and let go. Okay. So the 5% determines the 95% in your church. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. Here is an A list of some of that maybe would help you. So things that I think are important when we talk about this. The first one is your dynamic relationship with Jesus is really crucial. Your dynamic relationship with Jesus. It's an A list. It's things that are important on your list. Number two, your growing relationship with your spouse or a good friend, however you want to look at that. So if you're single tonight and you're listening, then I think you have to have a good friend that you can share life with and share goods and the bads. Number three is your growing relationship with your family. 4 is your sustainable ministry, and sustainable is key here. Too many of us can do ministry, but it may not be sustainable. Number 5, your responsibility to take care of your body. And number 6, your enriching times with family and friends. So I want to hold on to 6 just for a second, because I want to give a personal illustration. So I'm not whining, I'm just giving an illustration. Okay. So the car has been running really well lately. Okay. And I've had the oil checked and we're making sure the car is still running. So here's the deal. So Saturday, I'd gone full speed again. We had just had to do a Zoom that morning instead of face to face. And so we were going great. And I knew that the state Missouri championship was going on in Springfield. Okay. So here's what I do. I get on the phone. I call two of my friends. I say, hey, you guys doing anything Saturday afternoon? No. You want to go to the ball game? Sure. So they come out their wives and we go and we watch Norwood, Missouri, who was a 2A school, win the state Missouri championship in the last seconds. It was great. All right. Then we go out to eat and we spend about 2 hours or more eating. On the way home, I looked over at Rhonda and I said, man, I let go of the steering wheel. I know, man, that was really good for me tonight. Okay. And so here's what I'm saying to you. All of us have to have those moments. And I don't care what you do to make that moment happen for you. We need moments where somebody helps fill up our buckets in our own life. All right. So find your people to help fill up your bucket so you can enjoy the life. Number 5, we won't be able to be held accountable for how much we've done, but how much we've done of what he asked us to do. In case you're wondering, that there was just a home run right there. Okay, the ball just got knocked out of the ballpark. We won't be held accountable for how much we have done, but what we've done that he asked us to do. So be careful in your life that you don't do things, especially to make yourself feel good and to make yourself important. I call this the super pastor syndrome. If we could wear a big old mark on our, and we could put on their SP, super pastor, and we could fly around. Oh man, I mean, we go to all the hospital calls, we go to all the houses, we deal with every situation. Oh, we are incredible. Here comes super pastor, hey, to the call, to the rescue, super pastor. Well, pretty soon super pastor's going to crash. All right. And so don't just fall into the trap of getting caught with, hey, I'm doing things because it makes me look good. Do things that Jesus Christ himself has asked you to do. Okay. So what are your pillars in your life that must be driven so deep in your soul that no storm of hell can move them? What are your pillars? I want you to just think about that real quick. What are the things in your life that you are so founded on that no matter what comes your way, the storm's not going to blow too hard to destroy your life and your ministry and your church? What are the pillars? Okay. So the 6th one has to do with what things fill you and what drains you. What things fill you and what drains you. So it goes back to the warning lights on your car. And I've asked 3 pastors to kind of help us out with these questions tonight. So it's Fred Morrison, Mike Johnson, and Dennis Bergen in that order. And I've asked them, how do you know when you're drained and what do you do? So Fred, if you will unmute and kind of kick this off on your response to that.
Yeah, the symbols or the signs to me that I'm drained, lack of energy. I'm not inspired even when I'm reading the word or trying to fill myself up. I'm just too tired to take it in and digest it. So I run out of new ideas. I'm not enjoying ministry. I don't have any fight left in me if I have a confrontation with a board member or whatever. And I have a skewed perspective when I'm drained. It's usually negative. So what I do with that, and I have been there, I've been in burnout. I keep track of the hours I work And I've found over time that my body will not let me work over 60 hours, 2 weeks in a row. And I realized in bivocational, you're going to have to add those two together, what you're doing with the church and what you're doing with your job in the day. But I physically get sick if I work over 60 hours. So that becomes a barrier. And it's when I get close to that, then it's caution lights on the dashboard for me. So if I work a big week, like say East Holy Week, you know, it may end up being over 60 hours that I work, but I have to be intentional the next week to mark off time where I'm not coming in. I'm not doing church work. I'm going to cut way back the next week to balance that out so that in 2 weeks, I'm down to, I average about 45, 50 hours a week. And I have to also, when I'm feeling that drain, is a time for me to go to my calendar and plan a vacation. And I would say not a staycation, but where I actually have to go somewhere. I have to get out of town, go somewhere. And then one of the keys too, and maybe we tend to avoid this for some of us anyway, is being honest with our spouse about what we're feeling and where we're at. That if I tell my wife I'm burnout, I'm struggling right now, I'm negative, I don't have any inspiration, don't have energy, she's probably already observed that. And believe me, she has ideas of what will help me. She's weighing the things that are in the 85% or the 10% that I shouldn't be investing my energy in. And she'll tell me, even suggest who in the church could maybe take some of those things off of my plate. So that's really a key, is being honest with your spouse and listening to their suggestions. And then the other thing I find, when I get drained, I get tense, and I need to go hit something hard. So usually for me, that's golf. I just whack that ball. And I've also done it with tennis and with softball. So I need to get out of the house. And there's days when my wife senses I'm draining, and she'll say, do you have a time you're planning to play golf this week? And I'll say, do I need to? And she'll say, yes, I think you do. So that's mine.
Thank you, Fred. That is really good. Yeah. Okay. Mike Johnson.
Yes. Well, I have to say that I share a lot of what Fred said. Unfortunately, I'm a workaholic, and I'm also a perfectionist. And so those things put together can make it very easy for me to get drained, especially if I are put in a situation where things aren't working quite the way you think they should. When you mentioned a while ago doing the things that you believe that God wants you to do and not what you want to do, sometimes that right there really gets you, because you look around and you see other churches and other things that are being successful, and you want to emulate those things and do them, and it adds to your stress. I can also say that the micromanaging is also another thing. There are certain ministries that I definitely want to stay away from. I trust the people and I'll let them do their job. But I found myself trying to help at times in other areas, micromanage, and that brings about a draining then. Yes, 60 hours a week, that is tough. So I have relied upon my wife to help me. She gives me a lot of encouragement, and she also pulls back the reins so that I can, I guess you'd say, stop and look and see what I'm doing, and possibly then change. I love to fish. I love to play golf, but I found that smallmouth bass fishing is a great thing to do, to wade a creek and be able to see if I can outsmart that little fish with a lure. But so I can try to do those things to try to help refuel. And when I'm out in nature, then I'm able to, again, to look around and see things and just admire what God has done. And it also then helps me so that out of the office, away from the phone, I don't get that stress and that strain. So I know what it's like to have a TIA due to stress, mini strokes. I had a couple of those, which basically caused me to have to examine myself to make sure that I did not put myself in a bad situation again. And I also surround myself with good people, people who are like-minded and who see the big picture and have the same goals in mind. And so those are some of the things that I do to help me recover.
Good. All right, thank you, Mike. Man, this both have been great. Dennis has been a bivocational pastor all of his ministry. He's been a teacher and a pastor and has built a strong church. And I thought it would be good for us to hear from Dennis on what he does, maybe the dangers, and then also the help. So Dennis, it's all yours. Hope you're muted, Dennis. You're muted. There you
There
go.
we go. Okay. Well, like you said, when I started my ministry at age 40, I was a full-time teacher, and I had a young son who was a 3-sport athlete, and that kept us running travel ball and all of that sort of thing. I was working on my master's. I got my master's degree and my ordination, plus I was giving piano lessons at the time. So it was necessary for me to develop some coping strategies. And what I realized was the interrelation between body, mind, and spirit. You might have, drained by definition means that you need to be filled. And you might be working on your personal devotional life, your spiritual life, but you might be leaking in the physical and the emotional, mental aspect, and they're all interrelated. So I found it was necessary to make sure that mentally and physically I was fit as well. And exercise and plenty of rest and diet and all those kinds of things. And also to be careful what you think about. Bring your thoughts under submission, because negativity drains your energy. And so it's important that you discipline your mind. And all of those work together. And it's always been my belief that you'll always have enough energy to do what God has called you to do. And so there's really no reason for a pastor to ever burn out, because his resources are inexhaustible. If a pastor burns out, to me, that indicates they're doing more than he has called them to do. They're doing what somebody else ought to be doing. But I don't think you'll ever burn out doing what God has called you to do and nothing else, because he will equip you for what he calls you to do. And so just the whole total body, soul, spirit thing, and make sure that they're all healthy and working towards your goals, and don't try to do more than you're called to do, I think is a secret for me.
Great. Man, that's all good. Well, that was worth coming on for tonight. We'll pick up something from there to help you out. So great. Thank you. Thanks, guys. We really appreciate you pouring into us tonight. So let me continue on real quick. So number 7, you can't lead from empty. So I have taken this glass in front of you tonight. I think I've done it 3 times. I hope I've bothered you by it when I've done it. Okay. And here's the deal. I've got water in it, and I need to drink water in my journey, and so do you, right? We need fluids. Okay. If I don't drink, so here's, and those of you who've done athletic things, you'll understand this. If I don't drink fluids, especially the day before, I know I'm going to do a lot of sweating. So tomorrow morning, I'll be up at 5 o'clock, getting ready to go play ball. If I don't drink fluids, I'm going to be in real trouble tomorrow morning about 6:15. Okay. It's going to be noticeable. And too many times spiritual leaders try to lead without drinking from the cup. In other words, be careful you don't lead from an empty cup. You have got to have your cup filled I like to say you need to be so full of Jesus that when you walk into church and you get bumped by the person who they always are just so negative. And when they bump you that Sunday morning, you just spill Jesus out all over them. Okay? So make sure your cup is full. Number 8, always, oh no, I'm sorry, number 8, although you may lose your hunger, you can get it back. He spent a lot of time on that one. He did go into depression and burnout. He had to step away from ministry. And what he wanted us to hear him in the closing of that book was that God can restore you and he can refresh you and he can renew you in ministry. Just because you go through those places, just because you go through your deserts or your dry places, does not mean God is done with you. Okay? So if you will be like Moses in that second 40-year period and be attentive to when the bush burns, God's about to use you to deliver your people from the land of slavery. Okay? Now, seven lessons really quick. All right, really quick. Here we go. Number 1, don't overproduce. Overachievers don't know there's a tomorrow. This one was really strong for me when I began to put this one together. If you're, I like to have my list done the day. And what he was saying is your list most likely will be just fine tomorrow too. And that's really tough on me, I'll be honest with you. Okay, number 2, energy and focus. Proper rest and schedules allow you to accomplish more in less. One of the hard lessons that I have learned is when I force myself to take the proper time off, I am always better with people and I'm better in the office in being creative than I am if I try to push through. My thinking is fresh and creative when I get the proper time off. I'm like Fred. Fred, I probably, when I first learned to golf, I went out and I wrote late people's names on the golf balls. No, I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. But I did join you. I hit them as hard. But people would say, "How did you golf?" I said, "It was great." "Oh, what'd you shoot?" "Oh, I'd give them some high number, 120 or whatever." And they said, "Well, that's terrible." I said, No, I hit that ball as hard as I could hit it. It was great. It was a great day. So I'm with you. Okay. Number 3, get proper rest. Sleep, time away from work. I've not read this book yet, but the book, I think it's called Death of Your Phone. I talked to several people who have read the book, and I'll be honest with you, okay? That'll be really hard on me. I'm scared to buy the book, to be honest with you, okay? I'm thinking, oh man, I think I'm bad, but I'll watch other people and I'll tell Ron, I say, watch them. I mean, it's like, I've been talking with people and they'll be like, and I want to reach up and slap their hand and say, would you please put that phone down? That's really not that important. Okay. Well, I probably have done the same thing. All right. So I'm guilty of that. And so I've been thinking about that. Here's one that he shook me pretty good. And I actually read this section of the book several times to get it. And what he said was, please realize your day starts at your night. That it's getting rest at the night before changes the day. And when I finally got what he was saying, because he started off with the Hebrew and the Jewish calendar and their culture. So the Sabbath, for instance, starts on a Friday night, right? Everybody with me? Starts at 6 o'clock. Their day starts at night. And he talked about the culture of preparing for your day by preparing for your night. So I want to make application to that in your journey. Okay. Some of you do too much on Saturdays. And in doing too much on Saturdays, it drains the battery to your car engine for your Sundays. Okay. Somewhere you have to say, okay, at this point, I'm done. I just have to stop and get some rest, whether that's doing something you love to do or chilling out. But be careful, because realize your day starts at your night. All right. Number 4, exercise. Burn away the poisons. Heart, blood pressure, adrenaline all gets better when you exercise. Archibald Hart's book, Adrenaline and Stress. It is the book every pastor needs to read. No question about it. I don't need, it's not even debatable in my idea. This is a book that you have to have read in ministry. And so he gives you the reasons why of this adrenaline and stress and how they play together. He talks to you about what it does to your body. And then he literally walks you through what's the best way to handle it. Okay, so let me give you 2 examples out of his book to help you out real quick. Years ago, all the pastors used to take off Mondays for their day off. Okay, and what Dr. Hart taught with Dr. James Dobson, they said that's the worst day of the week for a pastor. And it's because you have had an adrenaline buildup all week long, especially on Sunday. And then you have what he calls the adrenaline crash every Monday. Okay. If you've been in ministry a long time, you know, you're like, oh, I'm with you. Okay. All right. He says, when you stay home with your family or whatever on that Monday, they're not getting the best day. They're getting the worst day of the week from you. So what I did was I changed my day off. So here's what I did as a pastor. Thursday afternoons, I took off, and Saturdays. Now, between those 2, it's a day and a half. I could get one or both of those every week, most likely. Maybe sometimes I didn't, but most of the time I got them. Okay. That helped me with this. So his second thing is that when you have adrenaline build up in your body, if you don't get rid of it, it actually destroys you. Okay. That's a nice way to say what he's, okay. It destroys you. So you have to do, when you have adrenaline and stress, you have to have exercise, and he'll explain it. The chemicals are broken down by exercise and actually leave your body in that process. Okay, so I hope you all will take time, read that book or listen to it in some form. Number 5, eating. We all probably have issues with eating, and we need to be careful there. Number 6, recharge daily. So this is really interesting. He used a story, and for those of you who camp or who are natural people, you love to be out in the nature, you love to go walking or hiking. This is a story that you'll understand. We had a spring several springs in our farm where I actually drank when we were working on the farm. I get this story really well. Okay. So Wayne was out camping, and as happens, the conservation agent came through, and he came to them and he said, hey, listen, the pH in the water is wrong, and you're going to have to boil your water if you're going to drink water at all, or you'll have to leave. And they said, what's the problem? He said, I don't know, but the pH is unhealthy, and you will get sick if you drink it. So that agent went up in the mountain, and he found the problem. The problem was a deer had died in the stream, and the decay was flowing through the stream down to all the people who were drinking water, who were doing the camping down in the river. Okay. He pulled that out, and in a few hours, the water's pH went back to normal and everything was fine. All right. So here's what he's saying. He is saying sometimes in our life, we have poison in the flow, and we're drinking the poison. So whatever you have to do to recharge daily, to make sure that your water supply and your soul is good, do whatever you have to do. Check to make sure there's no poison in your system. And number 7, I love what he says here. fight for your family. Fight for your family. Be willing to fight for what you know is right in your family. Okay? Okay. Does anybody have any comments or questions you want to ask or make tonight? It's just us.
Bill, did you say that this information was from a book?
Yes. It is Wayne Cordero. So it's Cordeiro. Wayne Cordero.
Okay, I see it up at the top. Sorry about that.
Well, it's no problem. Leading on Empty. It's a great book. It's a great book. All right. Any questions, any thoughts, anything you want to share? What was 6? 6, what things fill you and what drains you? What things fill you and what drains you? And I use the symbol of the warning light on the cars for that illustration. All right, anything else? I'm trying to read the chats and catch everybody's going on here. Everybody good? All right. Hey, I want to pray for you and us, me, and then let's go. Jesus, we love you tonight. Thank you for our time together. And if there's anybody that's listening tonight or will be listening to the recording, and in their life there's burnout, there's depression, they've just had all they want, I pray that you'll be the healer and restorer of their life. I ask, Father, that you'd reveal truth to them and help them to make an honest assessment of their life. And then, Father, I pray that you will use them for your glory in the days ahead. These topics, they're hard. They're hard. I mean, when we talk about these last 2 months and we talk about these critical conversations, and we realize that of all of the sessions that we've done, those 2 have probably got the most response we've ever done. We realize there's stuff going on in our lives that's putting pressure on. And so, Father, I pray that you will watch over and protect our pastors and our leaders, encourage them today. I pray that you protect their souls, their hearts and their minds. So we give to you our lives. We give to you our journeys. We pray, Father, that you will lead and guide us. Help us to only do what is your will. And we pray these things in Christ's name. Amen. Amen. Well, what a joy to be with all of you tonight. Thank you for just coming on. And those of you who will be watching the recording, thanks for spending time tonight. I hope somehow there's something in these that helps you and encourages you, makes you a better pastor, a better leader, better husband, better wife, a better friend. And if I can do anything for you, please let me know. Okay, so I'm going to stay on here a little bit in case some of you want to dialogue a little bit. I'll make myself available. For the rest of you, I tell you, go and advance the call. Okay, God bless you.